Today is July 17th. Originally, I planned to continue talking today about the incident on July 9th when Japan was eavesdropping near our place. Man, that story is thrilling. But this morning something big happened. That Syrian guy, Julani, was targeted in a decapitation strike. Wow, this is huge. So, let's put the Japan story on hold for now and talk about this first. After all, if the Middle East goes into chaos, can the 19-country joint military exercise in the Asia even continue? That's up in the air. So, let's dive into this first. First, let's talk about the timing. This happened in the early hours of today, but the news says it occurred on July 16th. Here's the thing. July 16th refers to local time in Syria. Damascus time is about 7 or 8 hours behind Beijing time. So, what exactly happened? Israel suddenly went crazy, sent planes, and bombed the Syrian presidential palace. They even reportedly used bunker buster bombs to hit the bunker beneath the palace. This was clearly a decapitation strike aimed at Julani. My gosh, when this news broke, the whole world went silent. Even the 19-country joint military exercise lost its spotlight, if you remember. In the last episode, I mentioned why those 19 countries gathered for a grand military exercise in the Pacific. It's because the Middle East had quieted down. With no pressure there, they started flexing their muscles in Asia, threatening the panda China. But just 2 days into their exercise, the Middle East erupted again, and this time it's worse Syria's in the spotlight. This episode ties back to what I said last December, about 7 months ago. I predicted Syria's fate back then, and now, half a year later, it's unfolding exactly as I said. I won't repeat what I said last year, you can check it out if you don't believe me. It's in the compilation playlist. Just click the link below and you'll see my December prediction about Syria's trajectory. Now, some might say, hasn't Syria always been chaotic? Ever since Julani took power, it seems like Syria hasn't had a moment of peace, but this time, it's different. Before, Syria's chaos was just internal factions fighting for turf, think warlord skirmishes. But now, Israel has directly entered the fray, bombing Syria's presidential palace to take out Julani. What's going on here? Didn't Julani surrender to Israel, acting like their puppet? He even handed over the Golan Heights and claimed eternal peace with Israel. How did things flip so fast? Just a few months later. To understand this, you need to revisit what I said last year about Syria's civil war. If you're a longtime fan, you already know I covered this in 7 or 8 episodes. I explained who Julani really is. He's a former terrorist who was with Al-Qaeda and later joined HTS, the so-called Desert Liberation Organization. This group is recognized globally, including by our country, as a terrorist organization, no debate there. But last year, Julani played some clever moves, exploiting gaps between Israel, Turkey, and the US to seize power in Syria. How he did it, I explained it last year, go review it. I won't repeat it today. Let's start from December 2024. Some of you might be thinking, oh no, here we go with another long story, back to last year. But there's no way around it. To understand an event, you can't just look at the present in isolation. Especially in the Middle East, it's insanely complex. It's like watching a movie from the middle. You'd be lost for hours, not knowing who's good or bad. Alright, no more tangents. Let's start from December 2024. At the end of last year, the Assad regime in Syria collapsed. Once Assad fell, the whole country descended into chaos. Julani took Damascus in just a week and declared himself in power. But like storming Beijing in the past, capturing the capital doesn't mean you control the whole country. Warlords were fighting everywhere, and he didn't have the strength to unify them. Look at the map. Syria's southwest borders Israel. Israel's leader Netanyahu saw the chaos and thought, if I don't take advantage now, I'm a fool. So, Israel sent troops, specifically their elite forces, to occupy the eastern side of the Golan Heights, calling it a buffer zone. What's a buffer zone? It's just a fancy term for saying, you're in chaos, so I'm taking a piece of your land and stationing troops there to protect my country's interests. Sounds nice, doesn't it? They called it a buffer zone to make it sound legitimate. Israel didn't just take the eastern Golan Heights, they've controlled the western side for years. Now, with the east under their control, the entire Golan Heights is in Israel's pocket. Check the map, Israel didn't stop there. They extended the buffer zone eastward, getting within 20 kilometers of Damascus. Israel's chief of staff, Halevi, openly declared that the Golan Heights is forever an inseparable part of Israel. This isn't a buffer zone anymore, it's outright annexation. That's how bold Israel is. I love their attitude, none of that Asian hesitation, always worrying about morals or face. Israel's like, why should I care? God's on our side. If I want it, it's mine. This was December 2024. Julani had just taken the presidential palace and had no time or energy to deal with the Golan Heights. So, in January 2025, after nominally consolidating the various armed factions in Syria, he started thinking about the Golan Heights. As I mentioned before, Julani was born there, it's his hometown. Your hometown gets taken by Israel, and you're supposed to be Syria's leader. If you don't even make a peep, aren't you just a traitor? From a public perspective, Julani couldn't let Israel permanently occupy the Golan Heights. Otherwise, he'd have no legitimacy as a leader. So, in January this year, Julani appealed to the United Nations, demanding Israel withdraw from the buffer zone. Think about it, does Israel care about the UN? In their eyes, the UN is nothing. They'd shred the UN Charter in front of everyone if they wanted. So Julani's appeal to the UN to get the Golan Heights back. No chance. Israel flat out refused, saying, "The Golan Heights is ours forever. Want it? Come, take it on the battlefield, not at the negotiating table." Julani realized diplomacy was a dead end, but the Golan Heights issue wasn't going away. He'd be accountable to history. So, he secretly proposed to Israel a land for promise deal. That's the Middle Eastern way, business-minded since ancient times. The Middle East has been about trade, the Silk Road, right? If you can't negotiate, you cut a deal. Julani suggested Israel return 1/3 of the Golan Heights and lease another third to Syria for 25 years. In return, Syria would recognize Israel's sovereignty over the remaining 2/3, he argued. Look, you've occupied half the Golan Heights before, and we never recognized it, nor did the world. It was illegal. But now, I'm giving you 2/3 and the world will have to recognize it. Just give me 1/3 back and lease another third so I can save face with my people. How's that? Israel looked at him like he was an idiot and slapped him down. Get lost. Why would I give you anything? It's all mine now. Why should I care about your face? They didn't even bother negotiating. Julani, humiliated, left with his tail between his legs. He knew messing with Israel was like messing with the US, a death sentence. This was January 2025. Julani's talks with Israel failed. Could he just accept it? No way. Middle Easterners are traders. They're flexible but never take a loss. If they lose today, they'll find a way to get even tomorrow. The Golan Heights isn't just any loss, it's the Middle East water tower. Water is scarcer than oil there. Israel gets 40% of its fresh water from the Golan Heights. Plus, from the heights, you can shell Damascus and Lebanon. Whoever controls it controls the region. Israel's been eyeing it since 1967, building military facilities for decades. They weren't going to give it back. Julani, a former terrorist who survived the notorious Abu Ghraib prison, wasn't some pushover. After the humiliation, he smiled and told Israel, "Fine, keep the Golan Heights, just recognize my government as legitimate." Israel smirked, barely acknowledging him, and told him to get lost. But Julani didn't sit idle. He contacted Turkey saying, "Israel's going to swallow me whole. If they control Syria, they control the Middle East. Where does that leave you, Turkey? You're in NATO because you're valuable in the Middle East. If Israel takes over, you're just a nobody." Turkey, always scheming to revive its Ottoman glory, saw the logic. If Israel controlled Syria, Turkey's influence would vanish. So, in March 2025, Turkey secretly signed a Syria-Turkey joint defense treaty with Julani's interim government. We don't recognize it as legitimate, mind you. The deal allowed Turkey to set up military bases in northern and central Syria and gain 20% of Syria's airspace control. Turkey planned to turn the T4 airbase into a drone operations center, deploy S-400 missile systems, and station 50 F-16 jets at the Palmyra airport, just 400 kilometers from Israel's heartland. That's close enough to bomb Jerusalem. This was Al's first move, drive the tiger to swallow the wolf. He couldn't beat Israel, so he brought in Turkey. Syria's already a mess, why not let Turkey in? He had no planes, so giving Turkey airspace control cost him nothing. And Turkey's S-400s, they'd only threaten Israel. Smart move. His second move was sneakier. He used HTS to funnel weapons to Hamas through southern Syria, with Turkey providing funds and tech. This was in March 2025, but I didn't mention it then because I was under the weather. Few know about this. On April 2nd, Israel's Mossad discovered Turkey's F-16s at the T4 base. Israel doesn't mess around. They bombed the T4 base without warning, destroying runways and hitting the underground command center where Turkish advisors were. That's Israel's style. Act first, think later. Turkey condemned the airstrike and sent mercenaries to Syria, but also reportedly negotiated secretly with Israel, offering to limit Syria's anti-Israel actions in exchange for Israel turning a blind eye to Turkey's oil and gas ventures in Cyprus. That might be Israeli disinformation, though things are messy. By June, Turkey deployed 50 F-16s and S-400s at T4 and Palmyra. The S-400s, with a 400 kilometers range, could down Israel's F-35s. Israel was livid, but couldn't act rashly against a NATO member like Turkey. On June 12, Israel caught 5 Hamas members near Lebanon with rocket-making gear. Mossad's interrogation revealed Julani was supplying Hamas with Turkey's backing. Israel leaked evidence of a $5 million Turkish transfer to HTS-4, Dr. Drone Tech Support, and accused Julani of being Turkey's puppet at the UN. The evidence seems fishy. Why would Turkey label a transfer like that? But it caused a stir. On June 13th, Israel attacked Iran, likely to keep Turkey in check. "You're supporting terrorists, but I'm busy with Iran, don't move." The Israel-Iran clash lasted weeks with Iran's missiles overwhelming Israel. The US stepped in, bombed Iran's nuclear sites, and brokered a ceasefire. Then, the US led the 19-country exercise in the Asia-Pacific, targeting China. Seeing Israel struggle against Iran, Julani realized Israel wasn't invincible. On July 9th, he met Israel's national security advisor in Abu Dhabi, conceding the Golan Heights entirely in exchange for Israel recognizing his regime and helping suppress domestic rebels. Israel agreed but laughed off his follow-up demands: support for annexing northern Lebanon and the Bekaa Valley, plus $10 billion for Syria's reconstruction. Israel told him to get lost. Furious, Julani drowned his sorrows in liquor, slamming the bottle down and vowing revenge. On July 13th, he launched Operation Restore Order, sending 9 armored divisions, led by T-72 tanks, to attack Ceuta near the Golan Heights. Turkey joined in, supplying M113 armored vehicles, manpads, and drones to attack Israel-backed Druze militias. This escalated into a Turkey-Israel proxy war. Israel responded with F-16I jets, bombing Julani's tanks and halting the advance. Turkey condemned the airstrikes and sent more mercenaries. By early this morning, Israel bombed Julani's palace in a decapitation strike. Things are chaotic. What's next? I can't predict the future, but Julani and Israel are done. As I predicted last December, Syria's chaos means no peace for Israel. With Turkey's military now in Syria, Israel faces pressure from both Turkey and Iran. Hezbollah will likely get more supplies via southern Syria. I expect major Middle East turmoil within a month. For us, it's just popcorn-worthy drama, but it's a stroke of luck. America stabilized the Middle East, gathered 19 countries to pressure China, and now the Middle East is collapsing again. Do they save it or not? It's like the Ming Dynasty fighting multiple fronts at once. That's fate. Next episode, we'll get back to cursing out Japan. That's the fun stuff. Thanks to my fans for your support. Your names will be on the screen. With the Middle East in chaos, Asia's pressure might ease, boosting our economy. I've been pushing for civil servant pay raises to boost consumption, but some misunderstood, saying farmers and workers deserve raises. Farmers don't have wages, their income comes from selling crops. For workers in private firms, forcing raises could bankrupt companies. I meant state-controlled sectors like teachers and SOE workers. For farmers, the best help is ensuring their crops sell at fair prices in 15 days. My premium Wuchang rice from Northeast China, certified organic, from the core region, will hit the market. Some say real Wuchang rice is exported, but why sell to foreigners? Let's promote domestic sales, even at lower prices. We're also launching Xinhui tangerines, Anxi Tiguanyan tea, and Shuanghui's premium products. I'm not just talking, I'm helping farmers with action. Let's hope our economy keeps improving. Please remember to like, subscribe to the channel, and turn on notifications to watch the latest videos. Goodbye and see you in the next video.